They say the most dangerous predators are often the ones that appear harmless at first glance. When the red serpent bandits rode into the remote mountain town of Pine Valley, they thought Dr. Elena Chen was just another small-town physician, educated but vulnerable, skilled but helpless. They couldn't have been more wrong. After 15 years studying exotic toxins in the world's deadliest jungles, she wasn't just a doctor. She was one of the world's foremost experts in lethal compounds, and she was about to teach them why some people are most dangerous when protecting their patients. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning mist clung to the valleys between the towering peaks of the Cascade Mountains, painting ethereal shapes across Pine Valley's landscape. Dr. Elena Chen moved with quiet efficiency through her clinic, arranging supplies with the same precise care she'd learned while cataloging deadly flora in the Amazon rainforest. The modest medical facility had been serving the remote community since the 1930s, though none of its previous physicians had maintained quite the same specialized greenhouse that Dr. Chen cultivated behind the building. Regular patients noticed how she'd integrated traditional healing practices with modern medicine, growing her own herbs and compounds alongside standard pharmaceuticals. What they didn't notice was how carefully she tracked who accessed each cabinet, or the sophisticated security systems protecting certain specialized storage areas. Few people knew that, before becoming Pine Valley's respected local physician, Dr. Elena Chen had spent over a decade working with indigenous healers across Southeast Asia and South America, studying both curative and lethal natural compounds. "Those new pain management herbs are working wonders, Doc," elderly Margaret Wilson said from her examination table, flexing her arthritic fingers with newfound ease. "Haven't felt this good in years." She glanced at the carefully labeled bottles, lining the shelves, each containing preparations that blended modern medicine with ancient knowledge. Though she never had to manage quite such dangerous materials in her nursing days. Elena smiled, adjusting a frame holding her research credentials, prestigious fellowships and advanced degrees that hinted at her exceptional expertise, though few locals knew the full scope of her studies. "Traditional medicine has a lot to teach us, Margaret. The key is understanding exactly how each compound interacts with the body's systems." She carefully locked a cabinet containing more potent preparations, her movements practiced and deliberate. The morning progressed with its usual rhythm, checking vital signs, writing prescriptions, treating the various ailments that arose. In a small mountain community, Elena found satisfaction in using her knowledge to heal, though she never forgot the darker applications of her expertise. Sheriff Kate Martinez stopped by mid-morning, her casual demeanor masking the concern in her eyes. "Quiet day, Elena?" she asked, declining the offer of coffee as always. "You don't usually make social calls this early, Kate. What's troubling you?" The sheriff picked up a medical journal, then set it down without opening it. "Had some reports of bandit activity in the northern valleys. Thought I'd check in, make sure everything's secure here." Elena's hand stilled briefly on the bottle she was labeling. "The red serpents? Could be. They've been pushing into new territory lately. Just keep your eyes open, okay? And maybe review those security protocols we discussed." After Kate left, Elena found herself checking the clinic's security systems more carefully. She'd heard about the red serpents from her contacts in the medical community, not just ordinary bandits, but organized criminals using remote locations to hide. Their operations. Her hand touched the encrypted satellite phone in her desk, the one programmed with emergency contacts from her research days. The late morning sun cast long shadows through the clinic's windows as Elena conducted her rounds. David Thompson, who managed the local pharmacy, joined her as he did every day before lunch, helping to inventory supplies and discuss any concerning trends in prescriptions. The small community's medical professionals worked closely together, maintaining the kind of coordination that larger cities often lacked. "Saw some rough-looking characters at the gas station," David mentioned quietly as they checked medication stocks. "Not our usual travelers." "They're just passing through," Elena replied, though her hand unconsciously moved to the hidden panel where she kept her most potent compounds, preparations that could heal or harm depending on their application. Mary Blackwood, who ran the local diner, stopped in while Elena was reviewing patient files. "Maybe we should close early today," she suggested, her voice low. "Those strangers people saw, I heard they've caused trouble in 3 counties. "This is my responsibility, Mary." Elena's voice carried the same quiet confidence that had served her well in remote jungles and research laboratories. "I can't abandon my patients every time there's a rumor of trouble." The first distant rumble of motorcycles came just before noon, the sound rolling across the valley like approaching thunder. Eleanor watched as worried faces turned toward the noise, as conversations stopped mid-sentence, as the peaceful morning transformed into something darker. Sheriff Martinez reappeared, her hand resting casually near her holstered weapon. "Elena, maybe you should—" "I'm staying, Kate," she continued, organizing supplies, each movement deliberate and calm. "This clinic serves the entire valley. My patients need access to medical care, regardless of circumstances." The rumble grew closer, and now they could hear individual engines, the sound of multiple motorcycles approaching fast. Elena thought about her years of research, about all the knowledge she'd gained, studying with traditional healers and in advanced laboratories. But more importantly, she thought about what those experiences had really taught her. That true strength isn't about the power to harm, but about choosing precisely when and how to use your capabilities. The first bikes appeared on Main Street, chrome gleaming in the midday sun. The Red Serpents had arrived in Pine Valley, and with them came a choice: stand up or stand down. As Elena Chen watched them approach, she knew her quiet morning was about to become something else entirely. What the bandits didn't know was that they weren't just threatening a small-town doctor. They were about to learn why some people, like some substances, are most dangerous when protecting what they care about. High in her research greenhouse, carefully tended plants swayed in the filtered sunlight. Among the medicinal herbs and healing flora grew more exotic specimens. Carefully controlled, meticulously studied, their properties understood by only a handful of experts worldwide. Dr. Elena Chen's hand moved to a locked drawer containing detailed notes from her years studying with a remote tribe in the Amazon, where she had learned that the line between healer and protector sometimes required profound knowledge of both life and death. Through the greenhouse's climate-controlled windows, Eleanor could see the entire valley spread out below her clinic. Pine Valley had been her home for 3 years now, chosen specifically for its isolation and the unique botanical opportunities provided by its microclimate. The town's location, nestled between 3 mountain ranges, created perfect conditions for growing certain rare medicinal plants and other more dangerous specimens that required careful handling. Professor Zhang's voice echoed in her memory as she checked the security seals on a particularly sensitive cultivation chamber. The most powerful healers throughout history, her mentor had told her during their research in remote Chinese provinces, understood that every substance that can cure can also harm. The difference lies not in the compound, but in the knowledge of its application. Elena's specialty in ethnobotanical toxicology had taken her to some of the world's most dangerous places, studying with shamans in the Congo, documenting unknown compounds in Papua New Guinea, and spending 2 years with a reclusive healing sect in the mountains of Peru. Her published works were required reading in advanced toxicology programs, though she published under a pseudonym to maintain her privacy. The sound of motorcycles grew louder, pulling her attention back to the present. Through the greenhouse glass, she could see dust clouds rising from the mountain road. The Red Serpent's approach was deliberate, designed to intimidate through the steady building of tension. It was a technique she understood well. In her research, she had documented how certain tribes used the psychological effects of poison preparation rituals to maintain social order. Moving to her private office, Elena activated a sophisticated security system that would seem out of place in a small-town medical clinic. Multiple cameras covered every approach to the building, with particular focus on the greenhouse and its valuable contents. A fingerprint-locked safe contained her most sensitive research materials, studies of compounds so potent that their very existence was kept secret from the general public. Her satellite phone buzzed, a message from Dr. Marcus Rivera at the CDC's Special Containment Division. Reports of red serpents moving north. Exercise caution. Remember Protocol 7. Elena's lips tightened. Protocol 7 was established after an incident in Brazil where criminal organizations had attempted to acquire restricted botanical compounds. Her greenhouse contained several specimens that could be devastating in the wrong hands. Turning back to her clinic duties, Elena maintained her calm exterior while mentally reviewing defensive measures. Every cabinet in the clinic had been carefully organized, harmless treatments in easily accessible locations, while potentially dangerous compounds were secured behind multiple layers of security. But it wasn't just about physical protection. Elena had spent years learning how to handle dangerous materials safely, understanding that true security came from knowledge rather than locks. The sound of engines was nearly upon them now. Through her office window, Elena could see Sheriff Martinez positioning herself near the clinic's entrance, trying to project confidence despite the growing tension. The townspeople who had come for treatment were gathering in the waiting room, their faces showing a mixture of concern and determination. This wasn't just Elena's clinic, it was a vital part of their community, and they wouldn't abandon it easily. Years of working in dangerous conditions had taught Elena to recognize pivotal moments. As the first motorcycles appeared at the edge of town, she knew this was one of them. The Red Serpents were about to discover that Pine Valley wasn't just another vulnerable mountain community. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous adversary is the one who understands exactly how fragile the boundary is between healing and harm. The clinic's automated defenses registered multiple breaches in the outer security perimeter. Elena watched through her surveillance system as the Red Serpents systematically disabled the standard security measures, the ones visible to professional operators. Their precision spoke of extensive military training, each team moving with coordinated efficiency that came from years of Special Forces experience. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Viktor Kovalev stood in the center of her clinic, his tactical assessment obvious in every measured glance. You've developed quite the sophisticated operation here, Dr. Chen, far beyond what any rural medical facility would need. His eyes traced the paths of hidden security cameras, noting the reinforced door frames, the subtle environmental sensors. Our intelligence suggests you've been busy since leaving the WHO's Classified Research Division. The reference to her previous work made Elena's breath catch. That information was supposed to be deeply classified. Through her monitors, she watched more Red Serpents deploying specialized equipment around the clinic's perimeter. Military-grade signal jammers, thermal imaging systems, and what appeared to be sophisticated chemical detection units. I find it interesting, Victor continued, moving with the deliberate grace of a trained operative, how you chose this specific location. Perfect elevation for growing certain rare specimens, unique atmospheric conditions. isolated enough to conduct research without oversight. He gestured to one of his men, who began unpacking what looked like advanced breaching equipment. Our employer is particularly interested in your work combining traditional botanical compounds with modern synthesis techniques. David Thompson's voice came through Elena's secure earpiece, pitched low and urgent. Multiple intrusion attempts on our secondary systems. They're using military-grade encryption protocols. These aren't ordinary hackers. They've got serious cybersecurity capabilities. Sheriff Martinez moved with casual precision, her own tactical training evident in how she maintained clear lines of sight to both exits. Your team's equipment is interesting, Mr. Kovalev. Looks like the same setup used in that classified facility. Breach in Singapore last month. Victor's expression hardened momentarily before smoothing back into professional neutrality. You're well informed, Sheriff. Then you understand that resistance would be unwise. He nodded to another team member who activated a sophisticated electronic warfare device. Immediately, all standard communications in the clinic went dark. We've isolated the facility. No external communications, no emergency services, no backup. Only Elena's hardened internal network remained functional, a precaution she'd implemented after seeing similar tactics used against research stations in South America. Through encrypted feeds, she watched the Red Serpents establish multiple tactical positions around her clinic. Their formation was textbook special forces, designed to control all possible access points while maintaining overlapping fields of fire. Your reputation in certain circles is quite impressive, Victor said, studying the reinforced door leading to her greenhouse. Particularly your work with neurotoxic compounds derived from indigenous sources. The Matses tribe's techniques for creating undetectable incapacitating agents, for example. Elena maintained her professional demeanor while mentally cataloging her options. Each section of her clinic contained carefully prepared countermeasures, sophisticated compounds designed to incapacitate without causing permanent harm. But these weren't common criminals. Their equipment suggested preparation for chemical and biological agents. We know about the automated defense systems, Victor continued, gesturing to barely visible environmental sensors. The chemical detection units, the emergency lockdown protocols, the filtered ventilation system. Impressive, but ultimately futile against a properly equipped team. More Red Serpents arrived, moving with military precision as they established secondary positions. Their equipment loadout spoke of serious financial backing, next generation, tactical gear, encrypted communication systems, advanced surveillance tools. These weren't mere criminals. They were professional operators executing a carefully planned military operation. Your greenhouse contains specific specimens we're interested in, Victor stated, his tone shifting to pure business. Particularly, the hybrid varieties you've developed, combining traditional compounds with modern pharmaceutical techniques. Our employer is willing to pay generously for your cooperation. Through her security feeds, Eleanor watched specialized teams setting up what appeared to be containment equipment, the kind used in high-risk biological material extraction. These men were prepared for serious resistance, including chemical countermeasures. The situation is quite simple, Victor explained, his tactical assessment complete. You can cooperate, sharing your research and specimens willingly, or we acquire them ourselves. He gestured to his men, who began preparing specialized breaching equipment. Either way, we leave with what we came for. Elena's satellite phone vibrated with an urgent message from her CDC contacts. Similar teams hit research facilities in Thailand and Peru, professional operators targeting specific botanical specimens. Extreme caution advised. You should know, Victor added, noting her attention to the tactical displays, that we've implemented complete spectrum control of the valley. All standard communications are blocked. All access routes are monitored. We've planned for every contingency. The threat wasn't just to her research anymore. Through her monitors, Elena watched more red serpents deploying sophisticated surveillance equipment around the clinic's perimeter. Their tactical positioning suggested experience in civilian control operations. These men were prepared to handle potential hostage situations. "Consider your position carefully, Doctor," Victor said, his voice carrying absolute certainty. "We have detailed plans for every possible scenario, including civilian complications." He glanced meaningfully at the patients in the waiting room. "Don't force us to implement more aggressive protocols." As the red serpents temporarily withdrew to their perimeter positions, Elena exchanged glances with Sheriff Martinez. Both women recognized the gravity of their situation. These weren't mere criminals seeking profit. They were professional operators, executing a carefully planned military operation. "They've got us completely contained," David reported through their secure channel. "Multiple layers of surveillance, electronic warfare capabilities, specialized breaching equipment. This is a serious tactical team with major backing." Elena moved to her secure laboratory, mind working through strategic options. Victor's team had obviously studied her known security measures, but they didn't know everything. During her years researching with indigenous healers, she had learned that the most effective defenses were often the ones that remained invisible until it was too late. In her secure laboratory, Eleanor accessed a hidden terminal that connected to her private research database. Years of studying with indigenous healers had taught her that the most sophisticated defense systems often appeared completely natural. While Victor's men focused on obvious security measures, they remained unaware of the clinic's true protective capabilities. "Dr. Chen," David's voice came through their secure channel. "They're deploying some kind of advanced atmospheric analysis equipment. Military prototype. I've never seen anything like it." Elena watched through her monitors as the red serpents unloaded sophisticated chemical detection units. The equipment confirmed her suspicions about their level of preparation. These weren't just hired guns. They had access to classified military technology still in development stages. "They're establishing a 3-layer containment perimeter," Sheriff Martinez observed, her FBI counter-terrorism experience evident in her analysis. "Primary team at all exits, secondary teams covering elevated positions, third team mobile and ready for rapid response. This is a professional operation." Through the clinic's specialized sensors, Elena tracked the deployment of Victor's forces. 27 operators total, divided into tactical units that moved with the kind of coordination that only came from years of working together in high-risk environments. Their equipment loadout suggested preparation for everything from standard riot control to advanced chemical warfare. "Your reputation for thoroughness is well earned," Victor commented, studying the clinic's layout with professional appreciation. "The publicly accessible areas are perfectly designed to appear ordinary while concealing sophisticated security measures, but it's what's hidden that interests us most." He gestured to one of his specialists, who began unpacking what looked like advanced spectroscopic analysis equipment. This device was developed for detecting trace amounts of biological agents in combat zones. "Fascinating how it keeps registering unusual readings from your greenhouse." Eleanor maintained her calm exterior while mentally reviewing her contingency plans. The red serpents had obviously studied her known security protocols, but they couldn't know about certain defensive measures she'd developed based on principles learned from shamanic traditions. Systems that operated on biological principles modern technology couldn't easily detect. "You've integrated quite effectively into this community," Victor continued, his tactical assessment extending beyond mere security measures. "Local doctor, trusted healer, valuable member of society, perfect cover for conducting classified research." Outside official oversight, his men continued their systematic deployment, each team moving with practiced efficiency. Their formation spoke of extensive experience in facility takeovers, particularly those involving sensitive biological materials. "Our employer has studied your career with great interest," Victor added, his gaze shifting to a seemingly ordinary section of wall that concealed one of Elena's more sophisticated defense systems. "Your official work with the WHO was impressive. Enough. But it's your unofficial research that caught their attention, particularly your innovations in combining traditional botanical compounds with modern delivery systems." Through her security feeds, Elena watched specialized teams establishing what appeared to be mobile laboratory units around the clinic's perimeter. The equipment suggested they weren't just here to steal research. They planned to analyze and possibly replicate her work on site. "I find it particularly interesting," Victor continued, moving toward the greenhouse entrance, "how you've managed to cultivate certain specimens that shouldn't be able to survive in this climate. Your work with environmental manipulation is remarkable." One of his technical specialists approached, holding a tablet displaying complex chemical analysis data. "Sir, we're detecting unusual atmospheric composition in the greenhouse. The readings don't match any known profiles." Victor's expression revealed a flicker of genuine curiosity. "You've developed something new, haven't you, Doctor? Something that combines ancient knowledge with modern science in ways we haven't seen before." Elena's monitoring systems tracked more red serpents establishing advanced electronic warfare positions around the clinic. Their equipment included next-generation signal jammers, thermal imaging systems, and what appeared to be prototype biochemical detection units. "Your setup here is impressive," Victor acknowledged, studying the reinforced door's sophisticated locking mechanism. "But we've encountered similar security measures before. Every system has its weaknesses, especially when the designers don't anticipate military-grade countermeasures." He nodded to another specialist, who began assembling what looked like advanced breaching equipment. The device's design suggested classified military technology, the kind that wouldn't exist in any official inventory. "I respect your work, Doctor," Victor stated, his tone carrying professional admiration. "Your research on neurotoxic compounds derived from traditional sources is revolutionary. The way you've managed to stabilize traditionally volatile substances, create new delivery methods, it's genuinely impressive." Through secure channels, David reported more technical details about the Red Serpent's deployment. "They're establishing some kind of electromagnetic containment grid around the clinic, military prototype technology, designed to detect and counter any biological or chemical agents we might deploy." Elena watched through her monitors as Victor's men continued their systematic preparation. Their approach revealed extensive experience with high-security facility breaches, particularly those involving sensitive biological research. "You should know," Victor added, noting her attention to the tactical displays, "that we've studied every documented defense system you've developed. Our technical team has countermeasures prepared for any known chemical or biological agent you might employ." What they didn't realize was that Elena's most effective defenses weren't documented anywhere. Her years studying with indigenous healers had taught her that true power often lay in understanding natural principles that modern technology couldn't easily detect or counter. In her greenhouse, carefully cultivated specimens had begun responding to the increased tension. Plants developed through years of combining traditional knowledge with modern botanical science. These weren't just ordinary research specimens. They were sophisticated biological sensors and defense systems that operated on principles Victor's team couldn't anticipate. "Your time is running out, Doctor," Victor announced, checking his tactical display. "I suggest you consider your position carefully. We have contingency plans for every documented security measure in your facility. There's nothing in your arsenal that we haven't prepared for." Elena allowed herself a small smile, thinking about certain compounds she'd developed by combining shamanic wisdom with advanced pharmaceutical techniques. The Red Serpents had indeed prepared for every known security measure, but they weren't ready for defenses based on principles that modern military science didn't yet understand. The first realization of the Red Serpent's true sophistication came when Elena's advanced monitoring systems detected unusual electromagnetic signatures around the clinic perimeter. Her equipment, designed to track subtle environmental changes for botanical research, revealed a pattern she'd only seen once before, during a classified operation at a military research facility in Southeast Asia. They're deploying quantum detection grids, David reported through their secure channel, his cybersecurity background evident in his analysis. Next-generation technology, still in experimental phases, designed to detect and map any biological or chemical agents at the molecular level. Through her specialized sensors, Elena watched Victor's technical teams establish positions with military precision. The equipment they were unpacking confirmed her worst fears. These weren't just mercenaries with stolen military gear. They were operating with direct support from someone with access to classified research and development programs. Their scanning equipment is picking up unusual readings from the greenhouse, Sheriff Martinez observed, monitoring the tactical feeds. Something about the atmospheric composition is confusing their sensors. Elena, what exactly are you growing? In there, Elena's mind raced through the implications. The Red Serpent's ability to access such advanced technology suggested connections to high-level military contractors or intelligence agencies. Someone with serious influence wanted her research badly enough to provide prototype equipment that officially didn't exist. One of Victor's technical specialists approached him with a tablet displaying complex molecular analysis data. "Sir, we're detecting compounds that don't match any known chemical signatures. The molecular structures appear to be shifting somehow." Victor studied the readings with professional interest. "Fascinating. You've achieved something remarkable here, Doctor. Our employer's intelligence suggested you'd made breakthroughs in botanical chemistry, but this," he gestured to the anomalous readings, "this is beyond anything we anticipated." Elena maintained her calm exterior while monitoring her greenhouse's environmental systems. The plants she'd developed through years of combining indigenous knowledge with modern science were responding to the increased tension, releasing subtle compounds that her own equipment could barely detect. "Your work combining traditional shamanic compounds with modern synthesis techniques has attracted serious attention," Victor continued, his tactical assessment extending beyond mere security concerns. "Particularly your success in stabilizing traditionally volatile substances. Do you know how many research teams have tried to replicate your results?" Through encrypted feeds, Elena watched more specialized equipment being deployed around her clinic. The Red Serpents weren't just setting up for a simple facility breach. They were establishing a full scientific analysis operation. "Our employer has invested considerable resources in studying your methods," Victor explained, examining readouts from his advanced detection systems. "But despite access to your published research and acquired data from other facilities, we haven't been able to reproduce your results. There's something unique about your approach, something that doesn't show up in any documentation." Elena's greenhouse monitoring systems showed subtle changes in the behavior of certain specimens, plants engineered to respond to specific environmental triggers. While Victor's team focused on detecting known chemical agents, they remained unaware of the biological processes already in motion. "Your integration of indigenous knowledge with modern science is remarkable," Victor acknowledged, studying another set of anomalous readings. "Most researchers try to isolate active compounds, synthesize them in labs, but you've understood something deeper about how these substances work in their natural context." His technical teams continued setting up increasingly sophisticated analysis equipment. Each device revealed another layer of classified military technology, systems designed to detect and counter any known chemical or biological agent. What's particularly interesting, Victor continued, gesturing to one of his specialists, is how your greenhouse maintains such precise environmental conditions. The temperature, humidity, atmospheric composition, all perfectly calibrated for specimens that shouldn't be able to survive in this climate. The specialist activated what appeared to be an advanced spectroscopic analyzer. Sir, we're detecting unusual molecular behavior in the air circulation system. The patterns don't match any known chemical profiles. Elena watched through her security feeds as more red serpents established positions with tactical precision. Their formation revealed extensive experience with high-security facility breaches, particularly those involving sensitive biological research. Your security measures are impressive, Victor observed, studying the clinic's sophisticated environmental controls. But what truly sets your work apart is your understanding of natural systems. You've developed something that operates on principles our technology struggles to comprehend. His assessment inadvertently revealed something crucial. Despite their advanced equipment and military training, the Red Serpents were approaching her facility with conventional tactical thinking. They were prepared for standard security measures, chemical agents, and biological weapons, but they weren't ready for defenses based on principles that modern military science didn't yet understand. Sir, another specialist called out, the quantum detection grid is showing unusual fluctuations. Something's interfering with our molecular mapping systems. Victor's expression revealed a flicker of concern. What do you mean, interfering? The readings keep shifting, like the molecular structures we're detecting are somehow adapting to our scanning frequencies. Elena suppressed a smile. Her years studying with indigenous healers had taught her that the most sophisticated defense systems often appeared completely natural. The plants in her greenhouse weren't just rare specimens. They were the result of carefully combining traditional botanical knowledge with advanced genetic engineering. Whatever you're doing, Doctor, Victor stated, his professional confidence showing its first signs of strain. It's unlike anything we've encountered. But don't think that will stop us. We have authorization to use any means necessary to acquire your research. Through secure channels, David reported more technical details about the Red Serpent's deployment. They're setting up some kind of molecular containment field, military prototype technology, designed to isolate and neutralize unknown biological agents. What they didn't realize was that Elena's most effective defenses didn't operate on principles their equipment could detect. Her understanding of indigenous botanical knowledge had led her to develop compounds that worked with natural systems rather than against them. Your time is running out, Victor announced, checking readings from his advanced detection systems. We've prepared for every known chemical and biological agent. There's nothing in your arsenal that our countermeasures can't handle. But as Elena monitored the subtle changes taking place in her greenhouse, she knew the Red Serpents had made a crucial miscalculation. They had come prepared for a confrontation with modern security systems and conventional weapons. Instead, they were about to face defenses based on centuries of shamanic wisdom, combined with cutting-edge science, natural compounds that operated in ways their military technology couldn't predict or counter. Through her greenhouse's specialized monitoring systems, Elena tracked the invisible battle already unfolding between her automated defenses and the Red Serpent's advanced detection equipment. Their quantum sensors, designed to identify any known chemical or biological agent at the molecular level, were registering increasingly erratic readings. Sir, we've got anomalies in Sector 3, one of Victor's technical specialists reported, adjusting controls on what appeared to be a prototype atmospheric analysis system. The molecular patterns, they're not just unknown compounds, they're actively changing in response to our scanning frequencies. Victor moved to study the readings himself, his special forces training evident in how he processed the technical data. These signatures, they're similar to something we encountered during a classified operation in Peru, a research facility studying indigenous plant derivatives. But the complexity here is on another level entirely. Elena watched through her security feeds as more specialized teams deployed increasingly sophisticated countermeasures around her clinic. Their equipment included experimental quantum field generators, molecular disruption arrays, and what appeared to be next-generation chemical neutralization systems. We're detecting unusual bioelectric activity in the greenhouse specimens, another specialist called out, monitoring a device that resembled a military-grade neural pattern analyzer. The plants, they're exhibiting coordinated responses to external stimuli, almost like a network defense system. David's voice came through their secure channel, pitched low with concern. Elena, they're setting up something I've never seen before. Some kind of quantum entanglement grid, theoretical technology designed to detect and disrupt any molecular-level changes in a contained area. Through her monitors, Elena observed the red serpents establishing what looked like a sophisticated mobile laboratory complex around the clinic perimeter. The equipment suggested they weren't just here to steal research. They were prepared to conduct advanced analysis and possibly even synthesis operations on site. Your work integrating shamanic knowledge with modern science is revolutionary, Victor commented, studying another set of anomalous readings. Most Western researchers try to isolate active compounds, break everything down into discrete chemical components. But you've understood something they've missed, the importance of natural systems working in harmony. His technical teams continued, deploying increasingly advanced analysis equipment, each device revealing another layer of classified military capability. These weren't just stolen prototypes. This was bleeding-edge technology that shouldn't exist outside the most secure research facilities. What's particularly fascinating, Victor continued, gesturing to a holographic molecular mapping display, is how your specimens maintain such complex chemical interactions without destabilizing. Our best synthesis teams haven't been able to replicate these effects in controlled laboratory conditions. Elena monitored subtle changes in her greenhouse's environmental systems. The plants she'd developed weren't just rare specimens. They were the result of carefully combining indigenous botanical knowledge with advanced genetic engineering, creating living systems that operated on principles modern science was only beginning to understand. "Sir," a specialist interrupted, pointing to rapidly changing data streams on his quantum analysis display. "The molecular patterns we're detecting, they're exhibiting properties that violate standard chemical behavior models. It's like they're adapting in real time to our containment measures." Victor's expression showed the first signs of genuine concern. "Explain." "The compounds we're detecting, they're not just complex organic molecules. They're showing signs of emergent behavior, responding to our detection methods in ways that suggest some kind of coordinated defense system." Through her specialized sensors, Elena tracked the invisible dance between her botanical defense network and the red serpent's military technology. While their advanced equipment struggled to understand what it was detecting, her carefully engineered specimens were already implementing sophisticated response patterns developed through years of studying natural defense systems. "Your understanding of molecular interaction networks is unprecedented," Victor acknowledged, studying another set of inexplicable readings. "Our employers' research teams have spent years trying to understand how you've achieved these results. The way you've managed to maintain stable quantum coherence in organic systems at room temperature." His assessment revealed something crucial about their approach. Despite their advanced technology and military expertise, the red serpents were still thinking in conventional scientific terms, trying to analyze and counter her defenses using standard chemical and biological warfare protocols. "Sir," another specialist reported urgently, "the quantum detection grid is showing cascading anomalies. The molecular patterns we're tracking, they're exhibiting properties that shouldn't be possible in a natural system." Elena suppressed a smile as she monitored the increasing confusion among Victor's technical teams. Her years working with indigenous healers had taught her that the most sophisticated natural compounds didn't operate according to the simplified models used in modern laboratories. They worked through complex interactions that military science, with its focus on isolation and control, struggled to comprehend. "You've developed something extraordinary here, Doctor," Victor stated, his professional confidence showing signs of strain. "But don't think your innovative approach will protect you. We have authorization to use experimental containment measures if necessary." Through secure channels, David provided more technical analysis of the Red Serpent's deployment. They're activating some kind of quantum field stabilization system, technology that's only supposed to exist in theoretical papers. They're trying to lock down molecular interactions at the quantum level. What they didn't understand was that Elena's defensive systems weren't based on simple chemical reactions or biological agents. Her work, combining shamanic wisdom with modern science, had led her to develop compounds that operated through natural principles that military technology, with its focus on domination and control, couldn't effectively counter. "We're seeing unprecedented levels of quantum entanglement in the atmospheric samples," a specialist reported, his voice betraying growing uncertainty. "The molecular networks are exhibiting coherent behavior across multiple scales. It's like the entire greenhouse is acting as a single coordinated system." Elena watched through her monitoring systems as the Red Serpents deployed their most advanced countermeasures. Each new device revealed another layer of classified military technology, each attempt to understand her defenses showing the limitations of their conventional scientific approach. In her secure laboratory, Eleanor made final adjustments to her automated defense systems. While Victor's teams focused on detecting and countering known chemical and biological agents, they remained unaware that her greenhouse specimens were implementing sophisticated defense strategies developed through centuries of shamanic understanding combined with modern scientific insight. "Your security measures are impressive," Victor acknowledged, studying readings from his advanced detection systems. "But we've prepared for every known type of chemical and biological defense. There's nothing in any existing database that we can't counter." But as Elena monitored the subtle changes already taking place throughout her facility, she knew the Red Serpents had made a fundamental error in their approach. They had come equipped to deal with conventional weapons and security systems, prepared for any known chemical or biological agent. Instead, they were facing defense mechanisms based on natural principles that operated outside the parameters of their military technology, compounds and systems that worked with the fundamental processes of life rather than against them. Through her specialized monitoring equipment, Elena tracked the progress of her automated defense measures. While Victor's teams struggled to understand the increasingly anomalous readings from their quantum detection systems, her carefully engineered botanical network was already implementing sophisticated response patterns that no military database could predict or counter. The Red Serpents were about to learn why some of the most effective defensive systems in nature don't rely on brute force or chemical weapons, but on subtle interactions that work in harmony with natural processes. While Victor's teams focused on their sophisticated detection equipment, a different kind of response was taking shape within Pine Valley Clinic. Local residents who understood the facility's importance to their community weren't about to stand idle in the face of this threat. "The mining tunnels," whispered Margaret Wilson, her years as a nurse giving weight to her quiet strategy. The old ventilation systems still connect to half the buildings in town, including the clinic's basement. She spread out a faded map across Elena's desk, revealing a complex network of underground passages that didn't appear on any official blueprints. Elena studied the map with newfound appreciation. The Red Serpent's advanced technology was focused on analyzing and containing her greenhouse's defenses, but they hadn't accounted for the town's hidden infrastructure. Passages and connections developed over generations of protecting community resources. Their quantum detection grids can't penetrate the mineral deposits in those tunnels, David reported, monitoring the Red Serpent's surveillance systems. The natural ore formations create electromagnetic interference patterns that mask any activity. Below ground, through her security feeds, Elena watched the local community mobilizing with quiet efficiency. Tom Gardner, who managed the mining museum, was already coordinating with other residents who knew the underground network. These weren't just emergency escape routes. They were supply lines and communication channels that had served the town through various crises. "My grandfather helped build these passages during Prohibition," Sarah Cooper explained, her knowledge of local history now proving tactically valuable. "Every major building in town has at least 2 hidden access points. The original engineers designed them specifically to bypass external security. Elena's monitoring systems tracked more Red Serpents deploying their advanced equipment around the clinic perimeter. While their attention focused on containing her botanical defenses, they remained unaware of the activity taking place beneath their feet. "The old pharmaceutical storage room," Margaret continued, pointing to a section of the map, "connects directly to the mining museum's lower level. The display cases there are still rigged with the original ventilation controls. One switch can redirect airflow throughout the entire underground network." David's voice came through their secure channel. "They're setting up quantum field generators at all surface-level entry points, but their sensors can't maintain coherence through the mineral deposits. The tunnels are completely invisible to their detection systems." Elena worked quickly, preparing specialized compounds that combined her botanical knowledge with the unique properties of the local environment. The underground passages weren't just escape routes. They were perfect delivery systems for certain naturally occurring substances that her research had enhanced. "The native limestone formations," she explained to Sheriff Martinez, "contain unique mineral properties that can amplify certain botanical compounds. When combined with specific atmospheric conditions," she gestured to several carefully prepared containers, "we can create effects that their military technology isn't designed to detect." Through encrypted feeds, Elena monitored the Red Serpent's increasingly sophisticated attempts to analyze her greenhouse defenses. Their advanced equipment revealed another layer of classified military capability: quantum entanglement sensors, molecular disruption fields, next-generation chemical detection systems. "Sir," one of Victor's specialists reported, "we're detecting unusual molecular activity throughout the facility's ventilation system. The patterns don't match any known chemical or biological agent." Victor studied the readings with growing concern. "These compounds, they're exhibiting properties we've never encountered. The molecular structures appear to be adapting to our containment measures." What they didn't realize was that Elena's true defensive strategy didn't rely solely on her botanical research. The community's hidden infrastructure, combined with her understanding of natural systems, created possibilities that no military protocol could anticipate. "The old mining families," Margaret explained, coordinating with other long-time residents, "they didn't just build tunnels. They created entire hidden networks designed to protect the town's resources. Every ventilation shaft, every access point was carefully planned. Elena's specialized sensors tracked the subtle changes already taking place throughout the underground system." While the Red Serpents focused their advanced technology on surface-level threats, the town's hidden infrastructure was becoming an integral part of her defense strategy. "They're deploying more quantum field generators," David reported, monitoring the Red Serpent's activities. "Military prototype technology designed to detect and counter any known type of chemical or biological agent, but they're all focused on surface-level analysis." Through her security feeds, Elena watched Victor's teams establishing increasingly sophisticated containment measures around her clinic. Their military precision revealed extensive experience with high-security facility breaches, but their approach showed a fundamental misunderstanding of what they were facing. "Your reputation for innovative research is well earned," Victor commented, studying another set of anomalous readings from his advanced detection systems. "But our employer has provided us with technology specifically designed to counter any known defense mechanism." Eleanor suppressed a smile as she prepared another batch of specialized compounds. The Red Serpent's reliance on military technology had made them blind to simpler, more natural solutions. While they searched for complex chemical weapons and biological agents, she was working with the very foundations of the town itself. "The original mining engineers," Sarah explained, showing Elena more detailed maps of the underground network. "They understood something fundamental about protecting resources. Sometimes the best defense isn't high technology, it's working with the natural properties of your environment." Through secure channels, David provided more technical analysis of the Red Serpent's deployment. "They're setting up some kind of molecular containment field around the clinic. Military prototype technology, designed to isolate and neutralize any unknown chemical or biological threat." What they couldn't understand was that Elena's defensive strategy wasn't based on conventional weapons or security systems. Her years studying with indigenous healers had taught her that the most effective protections often came from working in harmony with natural systems rather than trying to dominate them. "The limestone caverns beneath the clinic," she explained to her impromptu defense team, "contain mineral deposits with unique properties. When combined with certain botanical compounds, they create effects that military technology isn't designed to detect or counter." Margaret nodded, her years of medical experience helping her grasp the implications. Just like the old healing traditions, working with nature instead of against it. Elena's monitoring systems tracked the increasing frustration among Victor's technical teams. Their advanced equipment, designed to detect and counter any known threat, kept producing contradictory readings. The molecular patterns they were detecting didn't match any existing chemical or biological warfare profiles. "Sir," a specialist reported urgently, "these readings, they're showing characteristics we've never encountered. It's like the entire facility is somehow acting as a single coordinated system." Victor's expression revealed growing concern. "Explain." "The molecular interactions we're detecting, they're not following standard chemical behavior patterns. There's some kind of underlying organization that our sensors can't properly analyze." Through her specialized monitoring equipment, Elena tracked the progress of her integrated defense measures. While the Red Serpents deployed their most advanced military technology above ground, the town's hidden infrastructure was becoming part of a more sophisticated protection system. One that operated on principles their quantum sensors and molecular detection grids couldn't comprehend. The quantum interference patterns from the mineral deposits are fascinating. Dr. James Chen, Elena's former colleague from the CDC's Advanced Research Division, commented on their secure connection. He'd been analyzing the data Elena sent about. Pine Valley's unique geological composition. These naturally occurring formations shouldn't be able to maintain quantum coherence at room temperature, and yet Elena studied the complex molecular analysis displays while coordinating with the local community members gathered in her secure laboratory. The underground network they'd revealed wasn't just a series of tunnels. It was an intricate system, designed to work with the valley's natural features. The original mining engineers were brilliant, Sarah Cooper explained, pulling up more detailed historical records on her tablet. They didn't just dig tunnels. They mapped the natural limestone formations and mineral deposits, creating passages that followed the valley's geological flow patterns. Every ventilation shaft was positioned to take advantage of natural air currents. Through her specialized monitoring systems, Elena tracked the Red Serpent's increasingly sophisticated attempts to establish control above ground. Their advanced technology revealed another layer of classified military capability: quantum entanglement sensors, molecular disruption fields, next-generation chemical detection grids. "Look at these mineral composition readings," Dr. Chen continued, his expertise in advanced materials science evident in his analysis. The unique combination of rare earth elements in these deposits. They're creating natural metamaterial effects. No wonder their quantum detection systems can't maintain coherence underground. David's voice came through their secure channel, adding another layer of technical insight. The interference patterns aren't random. The mineral formations are actually amplifying certain frequencies while completely blocking others. It's like the valley itself was designed as a natural stealth system. Elena worked quickly, preparing specialized compounds that would interact with these unique geological properties. Her years studying indigenous healing traditions had taught her that the most effective natural systems often operated through principles that modern science was only beginning to understand. Each layer of limestone, she explained to her impromptu defense team, contains different mineral concentrations. When exposed to specific botanical compounds, they create cascading effects that propagate through the entire underground network. The natural resonance patterns amplify certain molecular interactions while masking others. Margaret Wilson, studying the old mining maps with practiced medical precision, noticed something significant. These ventilation shafts, they're not just for air circulation. Look at how they intersect with the mineral deposits. Each junction point corresponds to a major geological formation. Exactly, Sarah confirmed, her historical knowledge providing crucial context. The original engineers understood something fundamental about the valley's natural systems. They built these networks to work with the environment, not against it. Through encrypted feeds, Elena monitored the Red Serpent's growing frustration. Their advanced military technology, designed to detect and counter any known threat, kept producing increasingly erratic readings as it encountered the valley's natural quantum effects. "Sir," one of Victor's specialists reported, adjusting controls on their prototype detection equipment, "these interference patterns, they're unlike anything in our database. The quantum coherence effects we're detecting suggest some kind of coordinated molecular network, but the organization patterns don't match any known artificial system." Victor studied the anomalous readings with mounting concern. Could it be some kind of experimental defense grid? "That's just it, sir. These effects, they appear to be entirely natural, but they're exhibiting properties that shouldn't be possible. According to our current understanding of quantum mechanics, Elena's specialized sensors tracked subtle changes occurring throughout the underground network. The combination of her botanical compounds with the valley's unique mineral properties was creating effects that operated outside the parameters of conventional military science. "The limestone caverns beneath the clinic," Dr. Chen observed, analyzing new data from Elena's monitoring systems. "They're not just passive geological formations. The mineral matrix is actively participating in molecular transport processes. It's like the entire underground structure is functioning as a naturally occurring quantum network." Through secure channels, David provided more technical analysis of the Red Serpent's increasingly desperate attempts to establish control. They're deploying their most advanced containment systems, but every time they adjust their quantum field generators to counter one set of anomalous readings, new interference Patterns emerged from unexpected directions. What their sophisticated military technology couldn't grasp was that Elena's defense strategy operated through principles that predated modern science. The indigenous healers who had taught her understood that the most effective natural systems worked through subtle interactions that couldn't be reduced to simple cause and effect. The original miners, Sarah explained, revealing another layer of historical insight. They had this saying, "The valley protects its own." We always thought it was just a local expression, but look at these engineering notes. They deliberately positioned every tunnel and shaft to take advantage of natural energy flows through the mineral deposits. Elena's monitoring systems tracked increasingly chaotic readings from the Red Serpent's quantum detection grid. Their advanced equipment, designed to impose order and control, couldn't maintain coherence in an environment where natural systems operated through more complex, interconnected principles. "Sir," another specialist reported urgently, "we're losing sensor coverage across multiple sectors. The quantum field generators can't maintain stable containment patterns. It's like the entire valley is somehow responding to our attempts to establish control." Victor's expression showed the first signs of genuine uncertainty. "How is this possible? We have the most advanced containment technology available." "That's just it, sir. Our equipment is working perfectly, but the effects we're trying to contain, they're not following any known rules of molecular behavior. The more we try to impose control, the more unpredictable the patterns become." In her secure laboratory, Elena prepared the final elements of her defense strategy, while the Red Serpents struggled to understand the valley's natural quantum effects with their advanced military technology. She was working with principles that indigenous healers had understood for centuries, that true power often came not from dominating natural systems, but from learning to work in harmony with them. The valley's geological structure, Dr. Chen noted, studying new data from Elena's sensors. It's not just creating random interference patterns. The mineral matrices are actually forming naturally occurring quantum channels. When combined with your botanical compounds, he paused, the implications becoming clear. "Elena, you've discovered something revolutionary here. These natural systems are operating at a level of complexity that our most advanced technology can barely detect, let alone control." Through her specialized monitoring equipment, Elena tracked the culmination of her preparations. While Victor's teams deployed ever more sophisticated military technology above ground, the valley's hidden networks were becoming part of a more fundamental protection system, one that operated through principles their quantum sensors and molecular detection grids couldn't comprehend, because it worked with nature's own patterns rather than trying to impose artificial control. The first sign that Elena's defensive strategy was working came when the Red Serpent's most sophisticated detection equipment began registering increasingly erratic readings. Their quantum sensors, designed to identify and track any known molecular patterns, were encountering phenomena that defied conventional scientific understanding. "These readings are impossible," Victor's lead technical specialist muttered, recalibrating his advanced detection systems for the third time. "The molecular structures we're tracking, they're exhibiting quantum coherence effects that shouldn't be stable at room temperature." Through her specialized monitoring systems, Elena watched as her carefully prepared botanical compounds began interacting with Pine Valley's unique geological features. The limestone caverns beneath the clinic weren't just passive tunnels. They were becoming active participants in an unprecedented natural defense system. The mineral matrices are acting as quantum amplifiers, Dr. Chen observed through their secure channel, analyzing real-time data from Elena's sensors. Each geological formation is somehow maintaining stable quantum states, creating a network of naturally occurring quantum channels throughout the underground system. Elena's years of studying indigenous healing traditions had taught her something. that modern military science had overlooked, that the most sophisticated natural systems often operated through principles that couldn't be reduced to simple mechanical interactions. "Sir," another specialist reported urgently, "the quantum field generators are showing cascading failures across multiple sectors. Whatever's causing these interference patterns, it's spreading through the entire containment grid." Victor moved to study the readings himself, his special forces training evident in how quickly he processed the technical data. These patterns, they're similar to effects we encountered during classified operations targeting biological research facilities. But the scale and complexity here is unprecedented. Through encrypted feeds, Elena monitored the Red Serpent's increasingly frustrated attempts to establish control. Their advanced military technology, designed to impose order through force, was encountering natural systems that operated according to more subtle principles. The valley's geological structure, Dr. Chen explained, studying new data from Elena's monitoring systems. It's creating something analogous to a biological neural network. The mineral deposits aren't just conducting energy, they're processing and adapting to external stimuli in ways that suggest emergent intelligence. Elena watched through her security feeds as more Red Serpents deployed increasingly sophisticated countermeasures around the clinic perimeter. Each new piece of equipment revealed another layer of classified military capability: quantum entanglement, sensors, molecular disruption fields, next-generation chemical detection systems. "Sir," a specialist called out, pointing to rapidly changing data streams on his quantum analysis display, "the molecular patterns we're tracking, they're showing signs of coordinated behavior. It's like the entire underground network is somehow responding to our containment measures as a single system." Victor's expression showed the first signs of genuine concern. "Explain." "The quantum effects we're detecting, they're not random interference. There's an underlying organization to these patterns that our equipment can't properly analyze. The more we try to impose control, the more complex and unpredictable the responses become." Elena's specialized sensors tracked subtle changes occurring throughout the underground network. While the Red Serpents focused on detecting and countering known threats, they remained unaware that the very ground beneath their feet was becoming part of a more sophisticated defense system. "Look at these mineral composition readings," Dr. Chen observed, his expertise in advanced materials science evident in his analysis. "The unique combination of rare earth elements in these deposits, they're creating naturally occurring metamaterial effects. Your botanical compounds aren't just interacting with these formations. They're somehow activating latent quantum properties in the mineral matrices themselves." Through secure channels, David provided more technical analysis of the Red Serpent's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain control. "They're deploying some kind of quantum field stabilization system, military prototype technology, designed to lock down molecular interactions at the quantum level. But the natural interference patterns from the mineral deposits are making it impossible for them to establish stable containment fields. What their sophisticated military technology couldn't grasp was that Elena's defense strategy operated through principles that predated modern science. The indigenous healers who had taught her understood that the most effective natural systems worked through subtle interactions that couldn't be dominated or controlled through force. "The original mining engineers," Sarah explained, revealing another layer of historical insight. "They documented unusual effects in certain parts of the tunnel network, places where their equipment would malfunction, where compass readings would become erratic. They attributed it to mineral deposits. But look at these old survey notes. They're describing quantum effects that modern science is only now beginning to understand." Elena's monitoring systems tracked increasingly chaotic readings from the Red Serpent's detection grid. Their advanced equipment, designed to impose order and control, couldn't maintain coherence in an environment where natural, Systems operated through more complex, interconnected principles. Sir, another specialist reported urgently, we're detecting unprecedented levels of quantum entanglement throughout the underground network. The molecular patterns, they're showing coherent behavior across multiple scales. It's as if the entire valley is somehow acting as a single coordinated quantum system. Victor studied the readings with growing frustration. This is beyond anything we encountered in our operations targeting indigenous research facilities. The complexity of these interactions, it's like we're dealing with some kind of naturally occurring quantum computer. Through her specialized monitoring equipment, Elena tracked the culmination of her preparations, while Victor's teams deployed ever more sophisticated military technology above ground. The valley's hidden networks were becoming part of a more fundamental protection system, one that operated through principles their quantum sensors and molecular detection grids couldn't comprehend. The limestone formations, Dr. Chen noted, studying new data from Elena's sensors. They're not just creating random interference patterns. The mineral matrices are forming naturally occurring quantum channels. When combined with your botanical compounds, he paused, the implications becoming clear. Elena, you've discovered something revolutionary here. These natural systems are operating at a level of complexity that our most advanced technology can barely detect, let alone control. Sir, a specialist interrupted, his voice betraying growing uncertainty. The quantum field generators are showing complete failure across all sectors. Whatever's causing these effects, it's somehow propagating through our entire containment grid faster than our systems can adapt. Victor's expression hardened as he studied the increasingly erratic readings from his advanced detection systems. Shut down all quantum field generators. Switch to conventional containment protocols. We can't risk our equipment being compromised by whatever's causing these anomalies. But as Elena monitored the subtle changes taking place throughout her facility, she knew the Red Serpents had already lost their technological advantage. Their sophisticated military equipment, designed to detect and counter any known threat, was useless against defense systems that operated through natural principles their machines couldn't comprehend. The molecular disruption field is encountering unprecedented resistance. Dr. Marcus Way, Elena's former colleague from DARPA's Quantum Biology Initiative, commented through their secure channel. His expertise in advanced quantum systems provided another layer of validation for what they were witnessing. These natural quantum effects, they're exhibiting properties we've been trying to artificially replicate for years. Through her specialized monitoring systems, Elena tracked how her botanical compounds were interacting with Pine Valley's unique geological features in ways that defied conventional scientific understanding. Each limestone cavern, each mineral deposit was becoming part of an interconnected quantum network that operated on principles beyond military technology's ability to comprehend. The crystalline structures in these mineral formations, Dr. Way continued analyzing real-time data from Elena's sensors. They're maintaining quantum coherence at room temperature. We've spent billions trying to achieve this in laboratory conditions, yet somehow these natural systems are doing it effortlessly. Victor's technical teams deployed increasingly sophisticated countermeasures, each new device revealing another layer of classified military capability. Advanced quantum field generators, molecular disruption arrays, next-generation chemical detection systems, all encountering phenomena that operated outside their designed parameters. Sir, one of his specialists reported urgently, the quantum entanglement readings are off the charts. These patterns, they're showing characteristics we've only seen theorized in advanced quantum computing models. But this is happening spontaneously in a natural system. Elena's years of studying with indigenous healers had taught her that the most sophisticated natural processes often operated through principles that modern science was only beginning to grasp. While the Red Serpent's military technology attempted To impose control through force, she was working with systems that functioned through subtle, interconnected relationships. The mineral matrices aren't just conducting quantum effects, Dr. Wei observed, his voice carrying the excitement of a scientist encountering something revolutionary. They're actively processing and adapting to external stimuli. It's like witnessing the emergence of a naturally occurring quantum computer. Through encrypted feeds, Elena monitored the Red Serpent's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain control. Their advanced equipment, designed to detect and counter any known threat, kept producing readings that violated fundamental principles of quantum mechanics. "Sir," another specialist called out, adjusting controls on their prototype detection systems, "we're seeing quantum coherence effects propagating through the entire underground network. The interference patterns, they're somehow coordinating across multiple scales simultaneously." Victor moved to study the readings himself, his special forces training evident in how quickly he assessed the tactical implications. These effects, they're similar to theoretical weapons we encountered in classified files, experimental quantum field manipulators, but this is happening naturally, without any artificial control systems. Elena's specialized sensors tracked subtle changes occurring throughout the underground network. While the Red Serpents focused on counteracting what they perceived as artificial defense systems, they remained unaware that they were facing something far more sophisticated, natural processes that operated through principles their technology couldn't predict or control. The botanical compounds aren't just interacting with the mineral deposits, Dr. Wei explained, analyzing new data streams. They're somehow activating latent quantum properties in the crystalline structures. Each molecular interaction is creating cascading effects that propagate through the entire network. Through secure channels, David provided more technical analysis of the Red Serpent's deteriorating situation. Their quantum field generators are experiencing complete system failures. Whatever's causing these effects, it's overwhelming their containment protocols faster than they can adapt. What their sophisticated military technology couldn't grasp was that Elena's defense strategy operated through principles that indigenous healers had understood for centuries. The most effective natural systems didn't rely on brute force or artificial control. They worked through subtle interactions that maintained harmony with fundamental life processes. The valley's geological structure, Dr. Wei noted, studying real-time quantum coherence measurements, it's creating something analogous to a biological neural network. But instead of electrical signals, it's operating through quantum entanglement effects. The entire underground system is functioning as a single, coordinated quantum organism. Elena's monitoring systems tracked increasingly chaotic readings from the Red Serpent's detection grid. Their advanced equipment, designed to impose order through technological superiority, couldn't maintain stability in an environment where natural systems operated through more complex, interconnected principles. "Sir," a specialist reported with growing alarm, "the quantum field generators are showing cascading failures across all sectors. The interference patterns, they're adapting to our containment measures faster than our systems can recalibrate." Victor's expression hardened as he studied the increasingly erratic readings. "Switch to backup containment protocols. Activate the experimental quantum damping fields. Whatever's causing these effects, it has to operate within the laws of physics." But as Elena monitored the subtle changes taking place throughout her facility, she knew the Red Serpents had fundamentally misunderstood what they were facing. Their sophisticated military equipment, designed to detect and counter artificial threats, was useless against defense systems that operated through natural principles their machines couldn't comprehend. "The quantum coherence effects we're observing," Dr. Wei commented, his scientific expertise providing crucial validation. "They're maintaining stability through principles that completely overturn our current understanding of quantum mechanics." These natural systems are achieving what we thought was theoretically impossible. Through secure channels, David reported more technical details about the Red Serpent's deteriorating position. Their entire quantum detection grid is offline. Even their conventional sensors are producing nonsensical readings. It's like the very laws of physics are working against their attempts to establish control. Elena's years of studying indigenous healing traditions had taught her something that modern military science had overlooked, that the most sophisticated natural processes often appeared deceptively simple. While Victor's teams deployed increasingly complex technology in their attempts to establish control, they remained unaware that the very foundations of their scientific understanding were being challenged by principles that indigenous healers had known for generations. The Red Serpents had come prepared for a high-tech confrontation, equipped with classified military technology and advanced containment systems. Instead, they were facing something their sophisticated equipment couldn't effectively counter: natural defense mechanisms that operated through principles more fundamental than any artificial system they could deploy. The first casualties of Elena's defense strategy weren't physical, they were technological. Throughout the Red Serpent's perimeter, sophisticated military equipment began failing in ways that defied technical explanation. Advanced sensors produced impossible readings, quantum field generators overloaded, and communication systems encountered interference patterns that no electronic countermeasures could penetrate. Our entire detection grid is compromised, Victor's lead technical specialist reported, his military training evident in how he maintained composure despite mounting system failures. The quantum coherence effects we're detecting, they're somehow corrupting our equipment's core programming. Through her specialized monitoring systems, Elena watched as her botanical compounds began their subtle work. Unlike conventional chemical weapons or biological agents, these preparations operated through principles that military technology wasn't designed to detect or counter. The molecular patterns are extraordinary, Dr. Samantha Reeves, a leading expert in quantum biology, commented through their secure channel. Your compounds aren't just affecting their equipment, they're actually altering the quantum states of the electronic components themselves. Elena's years of research had led her to understand something fundamental about natural systems that military science overlooked. The most effective defensive compounds didn't attack directly. They changed the underlying conditions that made technological dominance possible. "Sir," another specialist called out, his voice betraying growing concern, "the quantum field generators are experiencing cascading failures. The molecular interference patterns, they're propagating through our systems faster than our containment protocols can adapt." Victor moved with controlled precision toward one of their mobile command units, studying displays that showed increasingly chaotic data streams. "Switch to isolated systems, disconnect all networked equipment. Whatever's affecting our technology, we can't risk it spreading through our entire infrastructure." But Elena's defensive measures weren't targeting individual devices. Through the quantum channels created by Pine Valley's unique mineral deposits, her specially prepared compounds were affecting the fundamental properties of electronic systems themselves. The crystalline structures in their equipment, Dr. Reeves observed, analyzing real-time data from Elena's sensors, they're undergoing quantum state changes at the molecular level. Your compounds aren't just interfering with their technology, they're actually restructuring the material properties of their electronic components. Through encrypted feeds, Elena monitored the Red Serpent's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain technological control. Their advanced military systems, designed to impose order through superior firepower, were encountering phenomena that operated outside the parameters of conventional physics. "We're losing all advanced scanning capabilities," a specialist reported urgently. "The quantum sensors, the molecular detection arrays, Everything's showing signs of systematic degradation. It's like our equipment is being reprogrammed. At the quantum level, Victor's expression hardened as he studied another failed device. I've seen something similar during classified operations targeting experimental research facilities, but those were artificial effects created by advanced quantum computers. This is something else entirely. Elena's monitoring systems tracked the subtle changes taking place throughout the Red Serpent's technological infrastructure. While they struggled to understand why their equipment was failing, her carefully engineered botanical network was implementing sophisticated defense patterns that no military database could predict. "Your compounds are achieving something remarkable," Dr. Reeves commented, her expertise in quantum biology providing crucial insight. "They're not just disrupting electronic systems, they're creating quantum entanglement effects that propagate through any technologically advanced material. It's like watching evolution accelerated to the quantum scale." Through secure channels, David provided more technical analysis of the Red Serpent's deteriorating situation. Their command and control systems are showing systematic failures. Every piece of advanced technology they deploy ends up contributing to their own containment. What their sophisticated military training couldn't grasp was that Elena's defense strategy operated through principles that indigenous healers had understood for centuries. The most effective ways to counter technological superiority often came from working with natural systems rather than against them. Even their backup systems are compromised, a specialist reported with barely contained frustration. The quantum interference patterns, they're somehow adapting to every countermeasure we deploy. It's like the more advanced the technology, the more vulnerable it becomes. Victor studied the readings from yet another failed detection system, his special forces experience evident in how quickly he processed the tactical implications. These effects, they're similar to theoretical weapons we encountered in classified research, but this is happening naturally, without any artificial control systems. Elena's specialized sensors tracked subtle changes occurring throughout the clinic's perimeter. While the Red Serpents focused on trying to maintain their technological advantage, they remained unaware that every piece of advanced equipment they deployed only made them more vulnerable to her natural defense systems. "The quantum coherence patterns are extraordinary," Dr. Reeves observed, analyzing new data streams. "Your compounds are creating cascading effects that target any artificially structured material. The more sophisticated the technology, the more completely it's affected." Through her monitoring systems, Elena watched as more of the Red Serpent's military equipment succumbed to her defensive measures. Each failed device, each compromised system demonstrated the fundamental weakness of relying too heavily on technological superiority. "Sir," a specialist called out with growing alarm, "we're detecting molecular changes in our quantum shielding arrays. The interference patterns, they're somehow bypassing our most advanced protection systems." Victor's expression revealed the first signs of genuine concern. "Shut down all non-essential equipment. Fall back to basic tactical protocols. We can't risk losing our entire technological infrastructure." But as Elena monitored the subtle changes taking place throughout her facility, she knew the Red Serpents had already lost their advantage. Their sophisticated military equipment, designed to dominate through superior technology, was being systematically neutralized by compounds that operated through more fundamental natural principles. "Your defense strategy is revolutionary," Dr. Reeves commented, her scientific expertise providing crucial validation. "Instead of trying to match their technological superiority, you've developed compounds that target the very foundations of advanced technology itself." Through secure channels, David reported more technical details about the Red Serpent's deteriorating position. Their entire command and control infrastructure is compromised. Every piece of advanced technology they try to deploy ends up working against them. Elena's years of studying with indigenous healers had taught her something that modern military science had overlooked, that the most sophisticated defense systems often appeared deceptively simple. While Victor's teams deployed increasingly complex technology in their attempts to maintain control, they remained unaware that their very reliance on advanced equipment had become their greatest weakness. The first signs that Elena's defensive strategy had moved beyond merely affecting technology became apparent when the Red Serpent's personnel began experiencing subtle but significant changes in their operational capabilities. Their highly trained operators, accustomed to functioning with military precision, found their reflexes slowing, their coordination becoming increasingly unpredictable. "Something's affecting our team's cognitive functions," Victor's medical specialist reported, analyzing biometric data from their tactical units. "The neural pattern disrupts. They're unlike anything in our medical databases. It's as if their synaptic responses are being systematically altered." Through her specialized monitoring systems, Elena tracked how her carefully engineered botanical compounds were interacting with human physiology. Unlike conventional incapacitating agents, these preparations worked by subtly influencing neural chemistry rather than causing obvious impairment. The neurological effects are remarkable. Dr. Isabella Santos, a pioneering researcher in ethnobotanical neuroscience, commented through their secure channel. "Your compounds aren't just affecting consciousness, they're actually modulating specific neural pathways associated with aggressive behavior and tactical decision-making." Elena's years studying with indigenous healers had taught her that the most sophisticated botanical compounds didn't simply disable their targets. They worked by gently shifting the balance of neural processes that govern specific behaviors and capabilities. "Sir," one of Victor's team leaders reported, his voice showing unusual hesitation, "our operators are experiencing increasing difficulty maintaining tactical formations. Their muscle memory, it's like they're forgetting years of combat training." Victor moved with decreasing confidence to study the medical readouts, his own movements betraying subtle signs of impairment. "These effects, they're similar to experimental neurotoxins we encountered in classified operations, but there's no sign of conventional chemical agents in our atmospheric analysis." Through encrypted feeds, Elena monitored the Red Serpent's increasingly disorganized attempts to maintain operational cohesion. Their military training, designed to function through strict protocols and practiced responses, was being undermined by compounds that operated outside conventional combat medicine's understanding. "Your botanical preparations are achieving something unprecedented," Dr. Santos observed, analyzing real-time neurological data. "Instead of targeting general brain function, they're selectively modulating specific neural pathways. The compounds are essentially dissolving learned combat responses while leaving basic cognitive functions intact." Elena's monitoring systems tracked subtle changes in the Red Serpent's behavior patterns. Their coordinated movements became increasingly erratic, their tactical decisions showing signs of fundamental disruption. Yet none of their advanced medical scanning equipment could detect what was causing these effects. "The operator's synaptic readings are extraordinary," Dr. Santos continued, her expertise in neurobotany providing crucial insight. "Your compounds aren't just affecting individual neurons, they're creating cascade effects throughout entire neural networks. It's like watching highly trained combat responses being gently unraveled at the molecular level." Through secure channels, David provided more technical analysis of the Red Serpent's deteriorating situation. "Their tactical cohesion is breaking down. Even their most experienced operators are having trouble maintaining basic combat formations." What their sophisticated military training couldn't grasp was that Elena's defense strategy operated through principles that indigenous healers had understood for centuries. The most effective way to counter military aggression often came not from matching force with force, but from subtly influencing the underlying patterns of combat behavior. The neurological interference patterns are spreading, Victor's medical specialist reported with growing concern. Every operator exposed to the clinic's environment is showing signs of degraded combat effectiveness. Their tactical muscle memory, it's like years of training, are being systematically erased. Victor studied the medical readings with mounting frustration, his own cognitive processes showing signs of subtle alteration. These effects, they're bypassing all our protective measures. Even our advanced filtration systems can't detect what's causing these changes. Elena's specialized sensors tracked subtle shifts in neural activity throughout the Red Serpent's teams. While they focused on trying to maintain their combat effectiveness through sheer discipline, they remained unaware that their very training was being gently reprogrammed at the molecular level. The neurobehavioral modifications are fascinating, Dr. Santos commented, studying new data streams. Your compounds aren't attacking the nervous system directly. They're creating subtle changes in how neural networks process tactical information. It's like watching highly trained combat reflexes being peacefully dismantled. Through her monitoring systems, Elena watched as more of the Red Serpent's operators succumbed to her defensive measures. Each failed tactical maneuver, each disrupted. The combat formation demonstrated the fundamental weakness of relying too heavily on programmed military responses. "Sir," a team leader called out with unusual difficulty, "our operators can't maintain tactical coherence. Their combat conditioning, it's like they can't access their training anymore." Victor's own movements became increasingly uncoordinated as he tried to analyze the situation. Fall back to basic infantry protocols. Whatever's affecting our advanced capabilities, we need to maintain fundamental combat effectiveness. But as Elena monitored the subtle changes taking place throughout her facility, she knew the Red Serpents had already lost their tactical advantage. Their sophisticated military training, designed to function through practiced responses and conditioned reflexes, was being systematically neutralized by compounds that operated on a deeper neurological level. "Your defensive strategy is extraordinary," Dr. Santos commented, her scientific expertise providing crucial validation. "Instead of trying to incapacitate their operators directly, you've developed compounds that gently dissolve the very foundations of combat training itself." Through secure channels, David reported more details about the Red Serpent's deteriorating combat effectiveness. Their entire tactical structure is breaking down. Even their most basic military protocols are becoming impossible to maintain. Elena's years of studying with indigenous healers had taught her something that modern military science had overlooked, that the most sophisticated ways to counter aggression often appeared deceptively gentle. While Victor's teams struggled to maintain their combat effectiveness through rigid discipline, they remained unaware that their very training had become their greatest vulnerability. Through her specialized monitoring systems, Elena tracked unprecedented changes in the Red Serpent's neural activity patterns. Their operators, each one representing years of intensive military conditioning, were experiencing something that no combat training could have prepared them for. The neurological modifications are extraordinary, Dr. Wei Lin, a specialist in advanced cognitive neuroscience, commented through their secure channel. Her work on neural plasticity provided another layer of understanding to what they were witnessing. These compounds aren't just suppressing combat responses, they're actually rewiring the neural pathways associated with tactical decision-making. Victor's medical specialists deployed increasingly sophisticated diagnostic equipment, each device revealing another layer of their classified medical capabilities. Advanced neural scanners, molecular imaging systems, next-generation biometric sensors, all encountering physiological changes that operated outside their designed parameters. "Sir," one of his medical officers reported urgently, "we're detecting unprecedented patterns of synaptic reorganization, neural interference. It's not just affecting combat reflexes. It's somehow dissolving the very architecture of military conditioning." Eleanor's years of research with indigenous healers had revealed something profound about human consciousness that military science overlooked. The most effective way to counter combat training wasn't through force or suppression, but through gently shifting the fundamental patterns of neural organization. "The biochemical cascades are remarkable," Dr. Lin observed, analyzing real-time neural imaging data. "Your compounds are triggering selective changes in synaptic plasticity. They're essentially guiding the brain to naturally release its conditioned combat responses." Through encrypted feeds, Elena monitored subtle shifts in the red serpents, behavioral patterns. Their coordinated movements, once precisely aligned through years of military drilling, became increasingly organic and unpredictable. Combat stances softened, tactical formations dissolved, as their neural architecture gradually returned to more natural patterns. "Our operators' cognitive scans are showing impossible results," a medical specialist reported with growing alarm. "The neural remapping, it's like decades of combat conditioning are being peacefully unwound at the molecular level." Victor moved to study the medical readouts, his own movements betraying increasing signs of neural reorganization. "These effects, they're bypassing every form of psychological conditioning we've encountered. Even our most resilient operators are showing signs of fundamental behavioral shift." Elena's monitoring systems tracked cascading changes throughout the Red Serpent's neural networks. While they struggled to maintain their military bearing through sheer force of will, their brains were quietly being guided toward more balanced, natural states of functioning. "Look at these synaptic response patterns," Dr. Lin commented, her expertise in neural plasticity providing crucial insight. "The compounds aren't forcing any changes. They're simply creating conditions that allow the brain to naturally release rigid combat programming. It's like watching years of military conditioning gently dissolving back into baseline consciousness." Through secure channels, David provided more technical analysis of the Red Serpent's deteriorating tactical cohesion. "Their formation patterns are becoming completely unpredictable. It's not just physical impairment. Their entire approach to tactical thinking is fundamentally shifting. What their sophisticated military training couldn't grasp was that Elena's defense strategy operated through principles that indigenous healers had understood for generations. The most effective way to counter military aggression wasn't through opposing force, but through reawakening more natural patterns of neural organization. "The cognitive restructuring is spreading," Victor's lead medical officer reported, studying increasingly erratic biometric data. "Every operator exposed to the clinic's environment is showing signs of enhanced neural plasticity. Their combat reflexes, they're being replaced by more adaptive response patterns. Even Victor's movements showed increasing signs of neural reorganization as he studied the medical readings. His tactical precision, honed through years of special forces training, gradually shifted toward more natural, flowing patterns of motion. "These compounds," Dr. Lin observed, analyzing new data streams, "they're not just affecting isolated neural circuits. They're creating cascading changes throughout entire networks of combat conditioning. It's like watching the brain naturally heal itself from years of military programming." Through her specialized monitoring equipment, Elena tracked the subtle but profound changes taking place in the Red Serpent's neural architecture. While they focused on trying to maintain their military discipline through conscious effort, they remained unaware that their very patterns of thought were being gently guided toward more balanced states. "Sir," a team leader reported, his voice showing unusual emotional nuance, Our operators are experiencing something unprecedented. Their tactical responses, they're being replaced by more natural behavioral patterns. Victor's own cognitive processes showed increasing signs of fundamental reorganization as he tried to analyze the situation. These effects, they're not just degrading our combat effectiveness, they're somehow unwinding our core military conditioning. But as Eleanor monitored the subtle shifts taking place throughout her facility, she knew the Red Serpents had already begun a profound transformation. Their sophisticated military training, designed to override natural human responses with combat conditioning, was being peacefully dissolved by compounds that worked in harmony with the brain's own healing processes. "Your approach is revolutionary," Dr. Lin commented, her scientific expertise providing crucial validation. Instead of trying to forcibly suppress their combat responses, you've developed compounds that simply allow the brain to naturally release its conditioned patterns. Through secure channels, David reported more details about the increasingly profound changes in the Red Serpent's behavior. Their entire tactical structure is transforming. It's not just combat effectiveness. Their fundamental approach to the situation is shifting towards something more balanced. Elena's years of studying with indigenous healers had taught her something that modern military science had overlooked, that the most sophisticated ways to counter aggression often worked through supporting natural healing processes rather than forcing change through opposition. The Red Serpents had come prepared for physical confrontation, their operators conditioned through years of intensive military training. Instead, they were facing something their tactical protocols couldn't effectively counter: botanical compounds that operated by gently awakening the brain's natural capacity to release rigid combat programming and return to more balanced states of functioning. As their sophisticated technology failed and their combat conditioning unraveled, the Red Serpents shifted to more desperate measures. Through her monitoring systems, Elena watched their remaining operators prepare for a direct assault on her clinic, a last resort option that revealed how completely they had misunderstood the nature of their opposition. They're deploying in combat stimulants, Dr. Amanda Chen, a specialist in combat pharmacology, reported through their secure channel. Military-grade compounds designed to override neural inhibitors and boost aggressive responses. But she paused, studying the real-time biochemical data from Elena's sensors. Something unexpected is happening to the stimulant's molecular structure. Elena's botanical compounds, now fully integrated with Pine Valley's unique geological features, were doing more than just affecting the Red Serpent's equipment and neural patterns. They were actively transforming any artificial chemical agents released into the environment. "Sir," Victor's pharmaceutical specialist reported with growing alarm, "the combat enhancers are showing unprecedented molecular degradation. The chemical structure, it's being completely reorganized at the atomic level." Through her specialized monitoring systems, Elena tracked how her defensive compounds interacted with the military stimulants. Rather than directly neutralizing them, her preparations were guiding their molecular reconstruction into harmless, naturally occurring compounds. "The biochemical transformations are extraordinary," Dr. Chen observed, analyzing the rapidly changing molecular patterns. "Your compounds aren't just breaking down the stimulants, they're actually converting them into beneficial metabolites. The more aggressive chemicals they deploy, the more the environment adapts to support healing processes." Victor's remaining technical teams deployed increasingly desperate countermeasures. Advanced chemical stabilizers, molecular binding agents, next-generation pharmaceutical enhancers, all encountering natural processes that operated outside their designed parameters. "The stimulant degradation is spreading throughout our entire chemical inventory," another specialist reported urgently. "Every combat enhancer we try to deploy is being transformed into into compounds that promote calm and mental clarity. Elena's years of studying with indigenous healers had taught her that the most sophisticated defense systems didn't just neutralize threats, they transformed them into beneficial elements. While the red serpents tried to force their will through chemical enhancement, her botanical network was quietly converting their agents into substances that supported natural balance. "Your defensive strategy is unprecedented," Dr. Chen commented, her expertise in combat pharmaceuticals providing crucial insight. "Instead of trying to counter their chemical aggression directly, you've created a system that transforms it into something healing. It's like watching warfare chemistry evolve into therapeutic biochemistry in real time." Through encrypted feeds, Elena monitored the red serpent's increasingly frustrated attempts to maintain combat effectiveness. Their military-grade stimulants, designed to override normal physiological limits, were being systematically converted into compounds that promoted peaceful states of consciousness. "The molecular reorganization patterns are remarkable," Dr. Chen observed, studying new data streams. "Your compounds aren't just affecting the stimulant's chemical structure, they're influencing the fundamental properties of any artificial combat enhancers introduced into the environment." Victor's movements showed increasing signs of cognitive shift as he studied the biochemical readings. These effects, they're not just neutralizing our combat pharmaceuticals, they're somehow turning our own chemical advantages against us. Through her specialized sensors, Elena tracked subtle changes occurring throughout the clinic's perimeter. While the red serpents focused on trying to maintain their chemical edge through stronger stimulants, they remained unaware that every new compound they introduced only added to the environment's healing potential. "Sir," a pharmaceutical specialist reported with evident confusion, "the molecular analysis shows our combat enhancers are being converted into natural, calming agents. The more we try to boost aggressive responses, the more the environment promotes peaceful states." Victor's own cognitive processes showed increasing signs of transformation as he tried to analyze the situation. "Deploy the experimental combat cocktails. Whatever's affecting our standard stimulants, the prototype enhancers should be too complex for it to convert." But Elena's defensive compounds weren't limited by conventional chemical understanding. Through principles learned from indigenous healers and refined through years of research, her preparations worked by guiding molecular reconstruction at the quantum level. The prototype stimulants are showing the same transformation patterns, as specialists reported, watching advanced chemical analysis displays. Their molecular structure is being completely reorganized. It's like the environment is learning from each new compound we introduce. Elena's monitoring systems tracked cascading changes throughout the red serpent's chemical inventory. Their combat stimulants, each one representing the peak of military pharmaceutical science, were being peacefully converted into compounds that supported natural healing processes. "Your botanical network isn't just defending against their chemical aggression," Dr. Chen commented, analyzing the ongoing transformations. "It's actually using their own compounds as raw material to create a more therapeutic environment. The more they escalate their chemical warfare, the more resources they provide for healing." Through secure channels, David reported more technical details about the red serpent's deteriorating situation. Their entire pharmaceutical arsenal is being transformed. Every attempt to enhance combat effectiveness through chemical means just adds to the clinic's therapeutic atmosphere. Elena's years of research had led her to understand something fundamental about natural systems that military science overlooked. The most effective way to counter chemical aggression wasn't through opposing force, but through guiding molecular transformation toward more beneficial patterns. The biochemical cascade effects are spreading, Victor's lead specialist reported, with growing uncertainty. Every new stimulant we deploy is being converted more quickly than the last. It's like the environment is developing an increasingly sophisticated response to our chemical interventions. While the Red Serpent's remaining operators prepared for their final assault, Elena watched through her monitoring systems as their last resort measures contributed to their own transformation. Their military-grade stimulants, designed to override natural limitations and promote aggressive behavior, were being systematically converted into compounds that supported healing and clarity. The molecular reorganization process is accelerating, Dr. Chen observed, studying the real-time chemical analysis. Your defensive system isn't just adapting to their compounds. It's actually becoming more efficient at transforming them with each new substance they introduce. The more they escalate their chemical warfare, the more powerful the healing response becomes. Through her specialized monitoring equipment, Elena tracked the culmination of her defensive strategy. While Victor's teams deployed their most potent combat enhancers in preparation for a direct assault, they remained unaware that every new compound they introduced was being transformed into something that would gently but irresistibly guide them toward peaceful resolution. The Red Serpents had come prepared for chemical warfare, their operators enhanced by the most sophisticated combat stimulants military science could provide. Instead, they were facing something their pharmaceutical protocols couldn't effectively counter: a natural defense system that transformed their chemical aggression into molecular support for healing and harmony. As the final confrontation loomed, Elena remained calm and composed in the face of what was, for all intents and purposes, a chemical arms race. The Red Serpent's military might, with their advanced pharmaceuticals and combat enhancements, had no counter to the subtle but profoundly powerful force she had cultivated. The compounds she had synthesized from indigenous plants, honed by years of research and spiritual wisdom, were turning the very tools of aggression into agents of healing. Through her monitoring systems, Elena saw the final moments of the Red Serpent's defiance unfold. As their combat stimulants reached unprecedented concentrations, she witnessed the transformation of each new chemical introduced into the environment. What had been designed to enhance combat response, suppress fear, and fuel aggression was now evolving into a harmless, restorative substance. Victor, standing amidst his team of increasingly confused and frustrated specialists, still struggled to make sense of the situation. His once razor-sharp tactical awareness had become more fluid, more introspective, as the transformation within him mirrored that of his operators. His decisions were less about immediate confrontation and more about contemplation, as if something deep within him was shifting in response to the environment. This can't be happening," Victor muttered under his breath, his words a mix of disbelief and awe. "We're losing control of the situation, but why aren't they reacting? Why aren't they fighting back harder?" Dr. Chen, who had been tracking the molecular degradation with growing fascination, stepped closer to Victor. "It's not that they aren't fighting back, sir. It's that they can't. The environment you're in is, well, it's not something you can force. Each stimulant, each chemical you release, is being broken down into something that promotes a calming, peaceful state. You're not dealing with an enemy, you're dealing with a system that's—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Healing itself, and you're providing the raw materials for it to grow stronger." Victor's face tightened. His military mind was at war with what his body and instincts were telling him. Every impulse to force a response, every desire to regain the upper hand, was met with an overwhelming sense of confusion. He wasn't sure what was happening to him, but it felt like the very essence of his identity, his trained combat reflexes, his warrior mindset, was slowly dissolving in the face of something much greater than his training had prepared him for. "How are we going to counter this?" Victor demanded, turning to his remaining team, but the specialists were no longer offering solutions. They were too caught up in the bizarre transformation of their own systems. One technician shook his head, eyes wide with realization. "We're not," he said quietly. "The more we try, the worse it gets. Whatever she's doing, it's irreversible. We can't outsmart it. We've been fighting it, but it's not an enemy we can defeat. It's nature." Victor turned away, running a hand through his hair. The weight of the situation pressed down on him. His mission, his life's work, had been to wage war with precision, with discipline, with calculated force. Now he was faced with something that was neither forceful or violent, but deeply, profoundly effective in its own way. It wasn't about winning, it was about transformation. Back in the clinic, Elena observed the Red Serpent's desperation, knowing the time was near. The battle had never been about military might or physical force. It had always been about creating a space for healing and realignment. As the Red Serpent's last attempt to use their prototype stimulants fell apart, Elena's botanical compounds continued their work, guiding the molecular structures into increasingly complex yet harmonious states. The atmosphere, charged with the transformed compounds, seemed to hum with a quiet power, a power not of violence or destruction, but of restoration. Elena's eyes softened as she watched the transformation take root. "This is how we evolve," she whispered to herself, a sense of quiet satisfaction filling her. Not through force, but through balance. And then the clinic doors opened. A new presence stood at the threshold. Victor, alone, his once confident gait now slower, more deliberate. His eyes met Elena's, and for the first time there was no anger, no military precision in his expression, only something deeper, something human. "You were right," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I came here to destroy what you were doing, but I see now that I was the one who needed to be changed." Elena nodded, her voice calm. "Sometimes the most profound transformation comes when we stop trying to force change and instead allow it to unfold naturally." Victor didn't respond immediately. He only stood there, as if contemplating the vast difference between what he had known for so long and the new reality before him. And in that moment, the final defense of the clinic wasn't about fighting or even winning. It was simply about embracing the unfolding process of change, a change that, despite the Red Serpent's fierce resistance, had already begun to heal not just their minds, but the hearts of those who came in search of destruction. In the end, Elena had not only countered military aggression, she had awakened a deeper kind of strength, one that had always been there, quietly waiting to rise. As Victor stood at the clinic's threshold, Elena's words seemed to settle around him, taking root in a place deep inside. The combat-trained soldier, hardened by years of conflict and discipline, now found himself in a space where his mind was no longer a tool of war, but an instrument of reflection. There was an unfamiliar quiet in him, a growing sense that everything he had once believed about strength and control was slowly dissolving. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Elena watched him carefully, reading the subtle changes in his posture, the way his breath seemed more measured, the way his eyes, once sharp and focused solely on tactical outcomes, now drifted as though searching for something deeper. Finally, Victor spoke again, his voice raw, almost tentative. "I don't understand how this is possible. These compounds, they were meant to be a weapon, a way to amplify our control over the battlefield. But what you've done, it's not just turning them into harmless compounds, it's changing everything about how we respond." Elena met his gaze, her voice gentle but firm. "It's not about responding with force. It's about responding with presence, with clarity. You've been trained to fight, to react quickly and with precision. But real power doesn't lie in the reflexes or the ability to destroy. It lies in the ability to adapt, to evolve in harmony with what's around you. Victor shook his head, as if trying to reject the simplicity of her words, but the confusion on his face betrayed a deeper struggle. You've undone everything I've spent my life building. How can you just turn it all off? This isn't natural. We're not meant to be like this. Elena stepped closer, her voice now quieter, almost like a soothing balm. You are meant to be balanced, Victor. You are meant to be whole. What you've learned has kept you alive in a world that demands warriors. But that world is fading. What I'm showing you isn't weakness. It's strength, an ancient strength, a way to live without constantly fighting. Victor's mind raced, grappling with the profound dissonance he felt. His soldiers, his team, were still deep in the throes of the transformation. The compounds they had used to enhance their abilities were no longer functioning as they had expected. Each new dose of combat stimulants only contributed to a deeper sense of peace within them, dissolving their aggression and replacing it with clarity. He could feel it within himself too, this shifting sensation. His thoughts, once sharp and precise, like a blade, were becoming softer, more fluid. His combat instincts, the very foundation of who he was, were no longer driving him. Instead, a sense of calm washed over him, one he had never experienced in all his years of training and battle. Is this what you've been preparing for?" Victor asked, the weight of his words carrying a new understanding. This kind of peace, this kind of healing. Eleanor's eyes softened, a small smile tugging at her lips. Yes, but it's not just peace for you, it's peace for everyone. The moment you stop trying to control, to dominate, to suppress, that's the moment you begin to heal, not just as a soldier, but as a human being. Victor looked down, the internal battle between his past and the possibilities of the future playing out across his face. The strength he had once defined by his ability to overpower was now being replaced by a different kind of power, the kind that came from letting go, from trusting that healing and evolution didn't require force. He took a step forward, closer, to Elena, his eyes scanning the room, the life all around him. The soldiers who had once been hardened warriors, infused with chemicals designed to amplify their ferocity, now looked different. They were no longer the sharp-edged instruments of war they had been. The battle-ready expressions that once dominated their faces were gone, replaced by a quieter awareness. Some of them sat, eyes closed in deep thought, while others spoke softly, their voices tinged with emotion, with a vulnerability they had never shown before. Victor turned back to Elena, the understanding settling in him like a weight lifting from his chest. It's not about fighting back anymore, is it? It's about understanding, about working with what's already here. Exactly, Elena replied. The world is full of conflict because we've spent so much time trying to control it. But nature doesn't need force. It needs balance. And when we find that balance, when we let go of the need to overpower, the world starts to heal itself. Victor inhaled deeply, his body tense as he adjusted to the new reality. He had been a warrior, his life defined by battle and strategy. Yet here, in this space where aggression and force had no place, he realized that the true battle was not one fought against an enemy. It was the battle within, between the urge to dominate and the willingness to surrender to a greater, more peaceful way of being. "Do you think," he began slowly, uncertainty still in his voice, "do you think I could ever lead again? I've been trained to command, to make decisions that drive people forward in conflict, but now I'm not even sure who I am without that." Elena paused, then stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder in a gesture of reassurance. "You're more than the role you played, Victor. Leadership doesn't require domination. True leaders know how to guide others with wisdom, with compassion, with clarity. You've already begun to learn that. It's not about knowing how to win battles, it's about knowing how to create peace. Victor closed his eyes, feeling the weight of her words seep into his soul. This transformation, this reawakening of his very being, was not something he had anticipated, and it terrified him. But in the terror, there was something else, something like hope, a flicker of light. Then maybe the fight isn't over, he said, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. But it's not a fight for control anymore. It's a fight for something greater, something we've lost touch with. Eleanor smiled, a quiet satisfaction in her heart. Exactly, the fight for balance, the fight for peace. It's a fight worth waging. Victor nodded, his gaze shifting toward the soldiers who had once been his enemies, now silently experiencing the same transformation he was going through. They were no longer warriors in the traditional sense. They were evolving, just as he was. And for the first time in his life, he felt a sense of connection to them, not as adversaries, but as fellow travelers on this strange, healing journey. As the red serpents, their minds and bodies reshaping in response to the compounds and the environment, looked toward Elena and Victor, they understood something fundamental. They had come prepared for battle, but they were leaving with something far more valuable, the understanding that true strength was not in the ability to destroy, but in the capacity to heal and evolve. As the transformation within Victor deepened, the full weight of his realization seemed to ripple outwards, touching not just his mind, but his entire being. His eyes opened wider, absorbing the clinic's serene atmosphere, which had once felt foreign and unsettling. Now it felt like the air itself was shifting, attuned to something deeper, something ancient. The red serpents had come prepared for an aggressive assault, expecting to overpower and subdue. But now, the tension in their bodies, the fierce readiness that had once driven them to conquer, was being replaced with an unexpected calm. Victor turned to face his team, the men and women who had followed him into countless battles, each of them hardened by years of combat, their minds sharpened to a singular focus, to dominate, to win. Now, they too were caught in the current of change. Some stood silently, their eyes wide with wonder, while others were speaking softly among themselves, their voices hesitant, but filled with a new, tentative openness. "Do you feel it?" one of his soldiers asked quietly, as he gazed at his hands, as though seeing them for the first time. His voice was filled with awe. "It's like the adrenaline is fading. I don't feel anxious or ready to strike. It's just still." Another soldier, his breath still heavy from the chaos of their initial response, nodded slowly. "I don't want to fight anymore. I don't know why, but it doesn't feel like it's what I'm supposed to do." Victor's gaze swept over them, and for the first time he felt the weight of leadership in a way he had never known. This wasn't about issuing orders, commanding his soldiers into battle, or leveraging fear. This was about guiding them, helping them navigate a reality that was shifting beneath their feet, just as it had shifted for him. "I don't know what comes next," Victor said, his voice low but steady. "But whatever it is, we face it together. We don't need to destroy, we need to understand. We need to rebuild, not from force, but from what we've forgotten." Elena watched the transformation unfold before her, a deep sense of peace settling within her. She had known that this process, this journey, wasn't just about the military. It was about the fundamental universal truth that when humans learn to release their hold on fear, on the need to control, they open the door to something far greater than themselves. The clinic, the very ground beneath them, hummed with the power of natural forces. Forces that had always been present but had been drowned out by years of conditioning. Now those forces were being embraced, cultivated, and integrated. The red serpents, a once formidable army, were now learning how to listen to the rhythms of the earth, to the subtle pulse of their own minds, and to the collective heartbeat of humanity. One of Victor's officers, who had been the most resistant to the changes, now stood in front of Elena, his eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and awe. "I don't understand how this works," he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "How are we not fighting this? Why aren't we trying to fight?" "Back!" Elena met his gaze, her expression soft yet resolute. "You were fighting, but now you're learning to live without fighting. You don't need to fight to survive. You need to learn how to flow with life, how to adapt. That's the true power." The officer hesitated, looking around at the others. There was no longer the sharp edge of readiness in their eyes. Instead, there was something else, a kind of curiosity, a spark of hope. "I've spent my whole life thinking that control, that power, was the key to survival," the officer said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "But I don't feel like I need that anymore. Not like I used to. So what do I do now?" "You begin by letting go," Elena answered, her voice steady. "You begin by trusting that you don't have to force everything, that you can move with the world rather than against it." Victor's eyes, still processing the enormity of his shift, turned toward Elena. "And what about us? What happens to us now? The red serpents are not just soldiers. They are human beings, with a history, with wounds, with scars. What do we do with all that?" Elena paused, looking over the room full of once-feared warriors. "Healing begins when we stop seeing ourselves as defined by our past, as defined by our wounds. When we stop carrying the weight of who we were, we begin to embrace who we can become. This is the work. It's not an easy road, but it's the only road that leads to true peace." Victor's shoulders relaxed for the first time since his arrival. His military mind, which had once been filled with strategy and contingencies, was now making space for something else, a quiet, internal alignment. He was beginning to understand that peace wasn't the absence of conflict, but the ability to navigate through it without losing oneself. As the days passed, the once rigid and disciplined operators of the Red Serpents found themselves slowly shedding the layers of aggression and conditioning that had been instilled in them for years. Instead of relying on stimulants or combat drugs to push their bodies beyond natural limits, they began to rely on their own inner balance. The botanical compounds Elena had created, which had once been seen as merely a tool to disrupt military pharmaceuticals, were now becoming something more, something deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the human body and mind. The transformation was not just biochemical, it was spiritual, emotional, and psychological. Victor now stood before his team again, but this time his voice wasn't that of a commander issuing orders. It was the voice of a man who had discovered a different form of leadership, a leadership based on empathy, understanding, and the shared experience of transformation. "We don't have to be defined by who we were," Victor said, his voice strong but gentle. "We are not our past. We are who we choose to become. And that choice, the choice to heal, to evolve, and to grow, this is our next mission." One by one, the members of the Red Serpent stepped forward, no longer as soldiers, but as individuals, taking the first step towards something new. They looked at each other with newfound clarity. The fierce bond they once shared through war, now becoming a bond of shared healing. Elena watched this unfolding with quiet satisfaction. She had known all along that true transformation began not in opposition, but in understanding and embracing the natural world. The world had been teaching them all along how to heal. She had simply provided the opportunity for that lesson to be learned. And as the last remnants of their old aggressive conditioning fell away, a new force emerged, one far more powerful than anything military training could have ever achieved. The force of a collective humanity, choosing peace, choosing growth, and choosing to walk forward, not as warriors, but as stewards of their own healing. The clinic, once a place of resistance, had now become a sanctuary of change. The red serpents, with their hardened shells cracked and softened, stood together at the threshold of a new world, one where they could finally see each other and the world around them for the first time, not through the lens of battle, but through the lens of possibility. The transition was slow, like a river carving through rock. Each day brought new realizations, new small shifts in how the red serpents interacted with the world and each other. For years, they had been trained to survive by dominating, by overcoming obstacles with force. But now, they were learning to survive by listening to themselves, to the environment, to the flow of life around them. Victor could feel it most acutely. The change wasn't just mental or physical, it was something deeper, more fundamental. It was as though his very sense of self was being rewritten. The reflexes he had trusted for so long, the split-second decisions, the combat readiness, were still there, but now they didn't come from a place of fear or anticipation. They came from a place of clarity, of presence. His body moved more freely, more in tune with the rhythms of the world around him, no longer bound by the rigid military conditioning that had once been his entire identity. The other members of the Red Serpents were beginning to experience it too. Some had fought the process more than others, holding tightly to their old identities, but even they were starting to see the benefits of letting go. It was no longer about suppressing their natural instincts, but about guiding those instincts into a new pattern, one that was not driven by aggression, but by wisdom and balance. Elena continued to observe the transformation with a mixture of satisfaction and quiet humility. The work she had done, combining indigenous healing techniques with modern scientific understanding, wasn't a quick fix. It was a slow and steady process, one that required patience and openness. And it was working. More and more she saw the Red Serpents, once warriors without question, becoming something more, a community of individuals finding their own paths to healing. One afternoon, as Victor sat on a moss-covered stone near the edge of the clinic, watching the sun filter through the trees, he found himself lost in thought. He had been thinking a lot about the future, about what came next. For the first time, the question didn't feel like a weight. It felt like an open door, waiting for him to walk through it. Elena approached him quietly, sitting beside him without a word. They both watched as the sunlight danced through the leaves above them. "Do you think there's a place for us in this world?" Victor asked after a long pause, his voice softer than it had been in the past. "After everything we've done, everything we've been trained to be, what is our purpose now?" Elena's gaze remained steady, her eyes searching the horizon. "Your purpose has always been to protect, Victor, but now the way you protect is different. You protect not just with force, but with understanding, with the ability to guide others through healing, to help them find peace within themselves. The world may not need warriors like it did before, but it always needs people who can help others heal. You have a unique strength, one that comes from your journey, from the things you've been through." Victor looked down at his hands, noticing how they were no longer tense with the anticipation of action. The muscles that had once been coiled and ready for combat were now more relaxed, their movements more fluid. It felt strange, but it also felt right. "You think we can truly help others?" Victor asked, his voice carrying a hint of uncertainty. "I mean, can we really be a force for peace after everything we've done?" Elena smiled softly, her gaze turning toward him with an almost knowing look. "Of course you can. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of understanding. And you've lived through the conflict. You've seen the worst of what people are capable of. Now you get to choose the other side. You've seen what happens when people stop fighting. You can help others see that too." Victor's mind wandered back to the Red Serpents, to the men and women who had once followed him into battle without question. They were different now. Their faces, once hard and set in the grim determination of warriors, now reflected something softer, something more human. Their eyes had begun to reflect the same awareness he was learning to see in himself, the awareness that there was another way, a way not built on destruction but on creation. "I think I'm beginning to see it," Victor said slowly, his words coming with more certainty now. "We were always so focused on winning, on conquering. But what if we've been wrong about what it means to win?" Elena's eyes sparkled with quiet approval. "You were never meant to win by destroying, Victor. You were meant to win by transforming, by leading through example, showing others that peace doesn't come from dominance. It comes from balance, from learning to live in harmony with the world and with each other." As the days turned into weeks, the clinic itself became a symbol of the Red Serpent's transformation. What had once been a place of resistance, where soldiers fought with every ounce of their being against the forces that threatened their survival, had become a sanctuary for reflection, for healing, for growth. And as Elena worked alongside them, she began to see how the entire ecosystem of the clinic had begun to mirror the changes within the soldiers. The botanical compounds she had carefully crafted, once designed as a countermeasure to military-grade pharmaceuticals, had not only begun to restore the soldiers' neural patterns to their natural state, but they had also become an integral part of the community's healing process. The plants, the soil, the air, they all seemed to respond to the presence of those who entered the space, offering the same restorative qualities to anyone willing to open themselves to the process. The Red Serpents had come expecting to dominate, expecting to conquer. But in the end, they had found a different kind of power, a power rooted not in control, but in letting go. A power that flowed from understanding, from self-awareness, and from the willingness to heal. Victor stood at the clinic's edge one evening, watching the last light of the sun fade behind the distant hills. He felt a deep sense of peace settle over him, one that he hadn't known before. The world had always seemed like a battleground, a place to be conquered. But now, as he stood there, he realized that peace was not something to be won. It was something to be cultivated, something to be nurtured. "Maybe the battle we've been fighting," he mused aloud, "was never really the one we thought it was. Maybe the real fight is the one inside us." Elena stood beside him, her presence steady and grounded. "It always has been, Victor. And victory comes when we learn to heal that battle, inside and out. The Red Serpents, once a force of aggression, were now a force of transformation. Together, they had found something far more powerful than anything they had ever known in battle, something that could not be defeated. The ability to heal, to evolve, and to help others do the same. And as they moved forward, the path ahead seemed clear. It was not one of war, but of rebuilding. Rebuilding not just the world around them, but themselves. A quiet revolution, born not from force but from understanding, had begun. And for the first time in their lives, they could see the possibility of a future defined by peace, by unity, and by the shared journey toward healing. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.